Before you touch your phone in the morning, before you check a single notification, before you scroll, reply, or react to anything, there's something you need to understand. Because what you do in the first few moments after waking up quietly shapes everything that follows. Most people don't notice it. They wake up, reach for their phone, and instantly enter a stream of information that has nothing to do with them. Updates, distractions, and within seconds, their mind is no longer their own. I'm going to tell you something most people never realize. From the side I came from, mornings were never left unguarded. I wasn't always on this side speaking openly like this. There was a time I was deeply involved in the occult, trained to observe patterns, timing, and how small, repeated actions influence a person's state of mind. And one thing was very clear: the first moments of your day are the most important moments you have, because whatever enters your mind first sets the direction for everything else. I remember this clearly. People didn't need something extreme to lose focus. They just needed to start their day without intention. And the easiest way to do that was through distraction. Now listen carefully. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because when you wake up and immediately touch your phone, you are not choosing your state. You are reacting to someone else's input, and reaction is what creates loss of control. Now imagine this: before you even stand up, your mind is already processing other people's problems, other people's opinions, other people's urgency, and without realizing it, you've already lost your starting point. That's how the pattern begins, quietly, daily, repeated. Now listen carefully. What I'm about to show you is simple, but it changes everything, because in the next chapter, I'm going to reveal what you should do before touching your phone, and why that one small shift protects your focus, your clarity, and your entire direction for the day. Now, this is the part most people skip, not because it's difficult, but because it feels too simple, and simple things are always underestimated. I remember this clearly. People believed they needed something complicated to change their day, but the real shift always started with one small, controlled action. Now listen carefully. Before you touch your phone, before you allow anything external to enter your mind, you pause. You don't rush out of bed. You don't reach for distraction. You stay still for a moment. That's the first step. Now here's what you do next. You bring your attention inward, not outward. You don't think about messages. You don't think about tasks. You don't think about what's waiting for you. You focus on yourself, breath, your awareness, your state, because this is the only moment where your mind is completely yours. Now listen carefully. If you lose this moment, you spend the rest of your day reacting. But if you claim this moment, you carry control forward. That's the difference. Now here's the key action. You set a clear intention before anything else enters your mind. Not something complicated, not something long, just one clear direction. How do I want to move through today? That's it. You decide your state before the world decides it for you. I saw this again and again. People who started their day this way didn't become perfect, but they became steady, less reactive, more focused, more aware of their choices. Now listen carefully. This is not about ignoring your responsibilities. It's about choosing your starting point. Because once your mind is pulled outward, it's harder to bring it back. But if you anchor it first, everything else becomes easier to manage. Now imagine this. Instead of waking up and immediately reacting, you wake up and take control. You set your direction. You stabilize your state. And only then you engage with the outside world. That one shift changes everything that follows. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you what happens when you skip this step and why touching your phone first thing in the morning quietly weakens your focus without you even realizing it. Now, this is the part most people experience every day, but almost no one questions because it feels normal. You wake up, your hand reaches for your phone almost automatically. No thought, no pause, just habit. I remember this clearly. This was one of the most effective patterns, not because it was forced, but because people did it willingly. Now listen carefully. The moment you touch your phone first thing in the morning, you give up control of your mental starting point instantly, because instead of your mind being guided by you, it's now being guided by whatever appears on that screen. News, notifications, news, other people's urgency, and within seconds, your attention is no longer yours. Now here's the truth you need to understand. Your brain is most impressionable right after you wake up. It hasn't fully built its filters yet. It hasn't stabilized its focus. So whatever enters at that moment goes in deeper, faster, stronger. I saw this again and again. People thought they were just checking something quickly, but that quick check turned into a chain reaction. One message leads to another. One thought triggers another. One distraction opens the door to many more, and before they even get out of bed, their mind is already scattered. Now listen carefully. This is how your day gets shaped without you noticing, not by one big decision, but by many small reactions. Because once your attention is pulled outward, it keeps moving outward. You respond, you react. You follow what appears in front of you instead of directing yourself. Now imagine this. You haven't even stood up yet, but your mind is already processing other people's expectations, other people's problems, other people's priorities, and your own direction gets pushed to the side. That's the silent takeover. Now, here's something very important. This doesn't just affect your morning, it affects your entire day, because the way you start determines how you continue. If you start in reaction, you stay in reaction. If you start scattered, you stay scattered. I saw this pattern everywhere. People felt busy all day, but not productive. They felt active, but not focused, because their starting point was already lost. Now listen carefully. If you touch your phone first thing in the morning, you are not choosing your day. You are entering someone else's. And once that happens, it takes effort to regain control. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you the second step, what you should do after that initial pause, so your mind becomes stable, clear, and ready before you ever engage with anything external. Now, this is where most people either lock in control or lose it completely, because pausing is only the beginning. What you do immediately after that pause determines whether your mind becomes stable or gets pulled outward again. I remember this clearly. This was the step people rushed through. They paused for a second, but didn't anchor anything. And because of that, the mind drifted back into distraction. Now listen carefully. After you pause, you must stabilize your state, not with something complicated, but with something intentional. You bring your attention fully into the present moment. You take a slow breath. You feel it. You don't rush it. You don't think about what's next. You stay there for a few seconds longer than feels comfortable. That's important because your mind will try to move quickly. It will try to jump ahead, but you don't follow it. You hold your position. Now, here's what happens when you do this. Your thoughts begin to slow down. your awareness becomes clearer. Your mind stops reacting and starts settling. I saw this again and again. People who gave themselves just a few seconds of stillness began their day with more control than those who rushed. Now listen carefully. This is not about meditation. This is about grounding. Because when your mind is grounded, it doesn't get pulled easily. Now here's the key part. After that stillness, you reinforce your intention, not in a long speech, not in something complicated, just one clear statement in your mind. I move with clarity today, or I stay focused and steady. Something simple, something direct, because your mind responds to clarity. Now imagine this. Instead of waking up and immediately reacting, you wake up, pause, stabilize, set direction, and only then you move forward. That sequence changes everything. Now listen carefully. Most people skip this completely. They go from waking up straight into reaction. And because of that, they never fully take control of their state. But when you do this consistently, your starting point becomes stronger, clearer, more stable. And once your start is stable, your day becomes easier to manage. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you what happens when this becomes your habit, when your mornings stop feeling rushed and your mind starts operating with clarity from the very beginning. Now, this is where everything begins to shift in a way you can actually feel, not because something dramatic happens, but because something consistent takes over. At the beginning, you have to remind yourself. You have to pause intentionally. You have to resist reaching for your phone. You have to bring your focus back. But after repetition, that effort starts to fade. I remember this clearly. This was the stage where people stopped trying to control their morning and started waking up already in control. That's the difference. Now listen carefully. When this becomes your habit, you no longer wake up in a rush. You no longer feel pulled in multiple directions before you even begin your day. Instead, you wake up with space, a moment of clarity, a moment where your mind is steady before anything touches it. Now here's what begins to change. Your thoughts don't scatter as quickly. Your attention doesn't get pulled so easily. You don't feel the same urgency to react immediately because your starting point is already stable. I saw this again and again. People who used to grab their phone instantly started forgetting about it, not because they forced themselves, but because their mind no longer needed that immediate input. Now listen carefully. This is not about discipline alone, it's about conditioning, because what you repeat daily becomes automatic. And once it becomes automatic, you don't fight it anymore. Now imagine this. You wake up, you pause naturally, you stabilize without thinking, you set your direction effortlessly, and only then you engage with the world. That becomes your new normal. Now, here's something very important. Your mornings start to feel lighter, less rushed, less reactive, more intentional. And that carries forward into everything you do, because the way you begin your day sets the tone for how you move through it. Now, listen carefully. This doesn't mean your day will be perfect. It means your foundation is stronger. And when your foundation is strong, everything built on it becomes more stable. I saw this pattern clearly. People who controlled their mornings handled their days differently, more focus, more clarity, less distraction. Now imagine this. Every day starts with control. Every action follows that control. That's how consistency builds. Not through big changes, but through small actions repeated daily. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you what happens when you take this even further. when your focus becomes so strong that distractions no longer pull you the way they used to. Now, this is where the real shift becomes undeniable, because at this stage, it's no longer just about how you start your day, it's about how you move through it. I remember this clearly. This was the level where people stopped being easily distracted, not because distractions disappeared, but because they no longer had the same pull. Now, listen carefully. When you consistently protect your mind in the morning, you build something most people don't have: stable focus, not temporary concentration, but steady attention that doesn't break easily. And once that becomes part of you, everything changes. Now, here's what starts to happen: you notice distractions earlier, not after they've already taken your time, but at the moment they appear. A notification comes in, you see it, but you don't feel the same urgency to react. A message arrives, but it doesn't interrupt your flow the same way, because your mind is no longer trained to respond instantly. That's the difference. I saw this again and again. People who used to get pulled into every small distraction started choosing when to engage, not reacting, but deciding. Now, listen carefully. This is control, not controlling everything around you, but controlling your response to it, because distractions only take power when you give them immediate attention. Now, imagine this: instead of reacting to everything that appears, you stay with what you're doing. You maintain your direction. You don't break your focus easily. That alone changes your productivity completely. Now, here's something very important. This doesn't just affect your work, it affects your decisions. Because when your focus is stable, your thinking becomes clearer. You don't rush. You don't jump from one thing to another. You move with intention. I saw this pattern clearly. People who protected their mornings started protecting their attention throughout the day. And once attention is protected, results begin to change. Now, listen carefully. Most people don't lack ability, they lack sustained focus. And without focus, nothing builds properly. But when your focus becomes strong, everything you do gains depth. Consistency is durant. Now imagine this: you start your day with control, you move through your day with focus, and nothing small is able to pull you away easily. That's what this becomes when it's consistent. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you the final truth behind all of this. Why something as simple as not touching your phone first thing in the morning can completely reshape how your mind operates over time. Now, this is the part most people misunderstand. They think this was all about the phone, the device, the notifications, the distraction. But that's not the real truth. I remember this clearly. People focused on the object, but the real shift had nothing to do with the phone itself. Now listen carefully. The phone is just a trigger, a doorway, a fast way to pull your attention outward. But the real issue is what happens when you give up your starting point, because the moment you wake up, you are in your most unguarded state. Your mind is open, your attention is fresh, and whatever enters first sets the direction. Now, here's the truth you need to understand: this is about control, not controlling everything around you, but controlling what enters your mind first, because what enters first leads everything that follows. I saw this again and again. People who changed this one habit didn't just improve their mornings, they changed how they thought, how they reacted, how they moved through their day. Now, listen carefully. You don't need to remove your phone completely. You don't need something extreme. You just need to delay it, to create a gap between waking up and engaging with the outside world. That gap is where control is built. Now imagine this. You wake up, you pause, you stabilize, you set your direction, and only then you choose when to engage with your phone, not automatically, not unconsciously, but intentionally. That's the shift. Now, here's something very important. Most people underestimate small actions because they are simple, but simple actions, repeated daily, reshape your entire pattern because they change how you start, and how you start changes how you continue. Now, listen carefully. This was never about fear. It was never about avoiding something. It was about awareness, because once you become aware of what pulls your attention, you can choose differently. And once you choose differently, repeatedly, you change your pattern completely. So, as you close this message, don't focus on the phone, focus on the moment before it, because that moment is where your control begins. And once you take control there, everything else becomes easier to manage. That's the real shift most people never realize.